the trying to push your reference and add more to it, that's great. Do that. Yes. What I don't recommend is using reference from a film or movie. I've seen a lot of people do it, and the thing is, it's recognizable. Even if you change it, even if you exaggerate it, people will notice. And part of animation is creativity. And this doesn't mean that we have to do something totally unique every time. But when we are copying something that was already when we copy something that was in another film, that's not creativity. And a studio does not want people who will take animation from other films, because that gets into a whole other territory of things. So as much as you can take inspiration from other films. Maybe you see Indiana Jones, it's on my mind for some reason, and you want to do that chase scene in Indiana Jones. Well, that's a good way to get inspired, but then try to come up with new ideas for it. Things that are totally different. Movements that the character does that are totally different. And ideally shoot your own reference, or find reference online of other people falling or jumping, things like that. But don't just use the same idea kind of one-to-one with small tweaks, because most people will notice, and it can hurt your reel more than anything. So I hope that makes sense. It's kind of the same rule as we don't use voice clips from very popular actors, mostly because it's too recognizable. And we don't use voice clips from animated cartoons because that is very recognizable, and automatically people will compare your animation to the original animation. So try to avoid that as much as possible. Find reference of real people running from giant spheres. You will find it, honestly. If you look up like Japanese game shows, I'm sure there's a lot of really interesting things of people just getting hit or having to run away from giant spheres or things like that. You could probably find some really good ones, honestly. And it'll be something unique versus using reference from the film and trying to push that. For example, just as an example, I've two clips that stand out that I remember seeing were some clips that someone took reference of Walking Dead and animated a character from the scene there. And the moment I saw the clip, I was brought right back to the scene, even though it was exaggerated, even though it was pushed, it was from that film. And all I could think of as I'm watching it is, wait, this is the film. I've seen this before. I'm not looking at their animation anymore. I'm just comparing it. That's not good. The other one was from King Kong. Same thing. The moment I saw it, it's like, wait, I've seen this before. And then I'm spending my time thinking, wait, where have I seen this before? And you don't want a recruiter to do that. Instead, they should be watching it and absorbed into your animation, not going, wait, I think I know who animated that, or the original clip, especially if you're taking reference from an already animated clip. You do not want that. I've got plenty of good reference from Wipeout and Takashi's Castle. Yeah, exactly. Those are great places to find references. You can find some really awesome impacts in those. Yeah, exactly. Shreddy Cheddar, awesome username. It only makes sense if you are intentionally nodding to a sequence, paying homage. Exactly. The problem is on a demo reel or as a student, it's very hard we don't have enough time to show that we're paying homage. It usually only comes off as copying. When you have a longer sequence, then you can pay homage because then you change it, the beginning and the end, or around it. So it's something we just have to be very careful of. And once again, it's okay to take inspiration from a shot. Definitely. If you see a movie and you go, wow, I want to do something like that. I want to animate an Avengers style move. Okay, cool. Look it up. Well, actually, here, let me put it this way. Legend of Korra or Avatar: The Last Airbender. That is hugely inspirational. Like those animations are amazing. And there's the Aang rig and all of these things. Wow, wouldn't it be cool if I did an Aang shot and did an airbender style shot? I can be inspired by the original, but I'm not going to take reference from the show, because then at that point I'm just copying. Instead, I'm going to try and make a proper thought process to this. What is airbending based on? I'm going to find my own reference for that. I'm going to try and learn the mechanics that they did in those shows to make the airbending or whatever bending feel so good, but I'll use it on something new. A new scene that maybe they haven't done, a martial arts move that they haven't used before. That can work really, really well. So you're being inspired by it, not just taking and changing a little bit. What about shots in another language? No, regardless of language, it doesn't matter because I'm French. I know a lot of French movies, and someone else might not know French, and they take a French film and copy it, but I might have seen it. You never know what language the recruiters speak or your audience is going to speak. So it's tricky. You just don't want to take things from media that already exists, and not to copy it, even like just as a reference and then changing it a little bit. If it's inspiration, that's different. So it is that key distinction between inspiration and then creating something new out of it versus using it as a base to build off of. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's see. And I grew up in Italy and can act it out myself with my family. Even if you reenact a scene, so for example, I could reenact, so instead of taking the reference of the film, I just get Cameron and I, and we reenact the scene and we try to follow along with the beats. Even that, you're still going to get that comparison. It's changing, but not enough. Instead, if you see a film and you go, man, I really like that idea, try to change it. How can you make it your own? Maybe add a different twist to it. It's the same thing with picking a line of dialogue. When you pick a line of dialogue to animate to, do not just do the same thing that was in the original film or TV show or wherever you got the dialogue from. Make it something new. Make it a new situation. Maybe it's, I'm going to use this. You wouldn't want to use this. It's the Luke, I am your father from Star Wars. Technically, it doesn't say Luke, I am your father. It's just I am your father. Let's say we take that line. Well, we're not going to animate a scene where someone's hanging off of a thing in the middle of an empty void with one hand cut off and Vader reaching out. No, we're not going to do that because that's the same scene. We can change it up a little bit, but it's still the same scene. Instead, try to repurpose that line. Maybe it's a guy who's walking into an orphanage and he goes, I am your father. And then the kid goes, no. And it's just a little kid. Same line of dialogue, totally different atmosphere and feel to it. Maybe it's like, we can think of all sorts of different scenarios, but try to reimagine it. So in this case, you see something from a film. Okay, maybe you take that as inspiration, but how can you make it something unique? Maybe, let's say the characters, and hey, Sheer, thank you so much for the sub. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So maybe you have the characters, and in the film, they're talking, and maybe they are in the kitchen, and they're cooking, and they're talking, and they're just having this conversation. Or just acting. Maybe they're like putting things together, making pancakes, we'll say. Okay. What if you do a similar scene, but maybe they're in the workshop and there is a family that are working together and they're building something. Similar idea in the sense of is people working together to make something, but instead of being in the kitchen, they're in a workshop. So one person's hammering, the other one's passing them nails, versus one person cracking the eggs while the other one's passing them the eggs. It's similar, but now you have something unique out of it versus a copy. And I don't mean copy in a bad way, but like there's no originality in it. It's just redoing the scene and just reacting or reacting, as in acting the scene, the same things. Both of them make sense. Let's see. So basically, Robin Hood shooting an apple from another character's head made into Hawkeye shooting the weapon from Loki's hand. Exactly. It's that kind of like, okay, and it's a joke, but it's true. It's that idea of, okay, I'm gonna shoot, and you have the William Tell apple over the head thing. Well, you could repurpose that idea. So maybe you've got a character and they're gonna swing an axe, and it's got a wooden handle. So they're swinging the axe, and the arrow hits the axe right in, like over their hand. It doesn't hit the hand, but right into the tree, and it locks it in place before they manage the killing blow. That would be a cool way to create that same idea, but repurposing it into something new and interesting and dynamic. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's see, what if it's sad crying dialogue you want to animate? There isn't much room for flexibility in the dialogue because of some of the words they use. You have to try and push it. So if they're crying, maybe you change the reason why they're crying. Maybe in the film it's a romantic comedy, maybe they're crying because they broke up with someone. Well, depending on the line of dialogue, maybe you can make them cry because they lost a family member. Maybe they're crying because they lost a pet. Maybe they're crying because they're chopping onions. You never know. Try to, even if the scene is going to be the same, they're crying. You can't change that. Even in the voice, there's certain times where if a character sounds angry, you can't suddenly make them happy because the voice is still angry. So instead, we want to change the reasoning behind, the story behind the scene if we can. Try to change some of the motivation. If we can't change that, then we change what they are doing in the scene. So maybe they're crying because they got a breakup and they're saying, I broke up. Well, you can't suddenly have a dog die in that because that makes no sense anymore. They're crying and they broke up. Those are two things that the dialogue is stating very clearly. So we now change what they are doing when they're crying. Maybe the first one is they're on the phone and they're just, I broke up. Okay, that's the original scene. Well, what if the next character, in your scene, they're packing their bags. They're getting ready to move out of the apartment that they share with whoever they're breaking up with, and they're grabbing their clothes and throwing it in the suitcase. I broke up. And they're doing something totally different. They're still crying because of a breakup, but now the scenario around it is unique. So we try as much as we can to change things. Otherwise, you're going to get compared, and that's something we don't want.